Welcome and good morning to most of you. It's afternoon here in Denmark. I have tried to shut out all the sunlight. We're benefited from a spring sun here, but we're blackened out everything because we're talking about navlights. They have to work at night, so it makes sense to be as dark as possible. As said, my name is Jan Møller. I hail from Denmark. I hope you understand my dialect. The background I have is that I'm co-founder of Lopolight. I'm CEO of the company, and I have sailed a lot. So, and you'll hear a little bit about that during today's cast. But let's get started. So I have prepared a little presentation for you. Really happy that you're taking time out of your schedule to listen to me. All the boats that are on this picture are customers of ours, choosing Lopolight from all kinds of reasons, and possibly you will know more about these at the end of this seminar. What I want us to go through today is a discussion about the future of LED and nav lighting. I prepared a little bit of going through the past. You will find it amusing, I'm sure. I had fun when preparing it, and where we are heading with nav lights. The takeaway from today is possibly the regulatory stuff, where it is complicated, to say it at least, but it is also something that you can rest assured that we got our handle on, and you should just relax, enjoy the ride, and rely on us, because we have a Lopolight answer. I'll show you how our lights are built, why they are built the way they are, the depth of the range, and how to control and monitor it. If you have interest in working with us, and there's a little bit on tools and support, and then we can go into questions and answers. So let's go into it. It all started quite a while ago. Actually, in the Isle of Rhodes, Greece, where they mostly known as the Colossus of Rhodes. Back in the day, 740 after Christ, the first law of navigation was written. The first law we know of that was written down, and they were describing how to use an anchor light, and then it's possibly to avoid the collisions at night. I'm sure that's the reason why. The next point in time where we see anything about nav lights and history is in Riga in Latvia, where in 1270 they defined a running light. It's a white light, but nevertheless they defined a running light sitting on the back end of these cogs, which was the preferred modern ship of the age. You can see the resemblance of the Viking ships. If some of you have seen them, they become wider, and then they got this thing on the back. This is actually a replica. If we work further up, then the Danish Christian V, he defined how to use and when to use your lights, and then the English came in, and basically they defined that you could place a number of white lights on the yard arms. And I think it was 4 on the starboard side and 2 on the port and 1 in the stern, and then you can see where the ship was. and so that was pretty smart. And this English warships regulation actually ran into the time of steam. But in 1834, the City of Dublin Steamship Company, a engineer named Shaw, he invented the red light. Smart guy. And he found out, hey, I want to put it on the port side, and then he defined the other lights on board to be a starboard side light that was white, and a masthead light that was white. Cool. So 2 years later, we have a situation in Southampton. The Peninsula and Oriental Steam Navigation Company, that has sort of crooked your tongue, but they're known as P&O today. And they had the audacity to put the port side light being green and the starboard red and the masthead all around white. So we see the trouble, right? And basically that issue with ship owners defining what navigation lights they wanted to show was a bit of an issue in the mid-1800s with the following collisions and with the loss of life and with the issues you could imagine. Then in 1847, they identified the issue. 1853, they basically, the English Admiralty put a regulation in, and that was the basic motto of today's Colrex. And they defined the port side being a red side light, the starboard a green, the masthead and the stern. So that was pretty cool. Not that that everybody liked it, you know, you would like to invent your things yourself. So it took a little while until the English and the French, at a point in time where they were not at war with each other, that they agreed to that this was to be law. And the English said anybody who sails in our waters has to work with this navigation light regimen, and that sort of put an end to the discussions. And out of that we got the Colrec that many of you know of and have heard of, and I'm in communication with this little book. And actually the last 29 pages, more or less, is about nav lights. So if you want to be an expert on nav lights, it's just a study of 29 pages. And you will join the chosen few, because there are not many who are deep into this. So after a bit of conflict, a bit of red and green confusion, and some works in 1972, everybody in the IMO agreed to follow the Colrex, and it's a the more I work with it, and I've been working with it professionally for 16 years. That's how long we've been working with Lopolight. And some of you might wonder what is Lopolight. And it was in the day when Peter Hanke, my co-partner, invented these lights. The whole thing was on power, and the savings of power. So Lopo basically is low power, and it was available as a .com, so that sealed it. So Lopolight, that's the reason. The Colrex are, the more you work with them, you get deeper and deeper respect for the guys who wrote it. Even to give an example, the color of the green side light, or the green light defined in the Colrex, it's not green. It's green with a blue tint, and the blue the blue tint makes it possible for the red and green colorblind to discern between a starboard and a port side light. You know, that I just thought that was awesome. Moving a little ahead, going back to this presentation thing, the big thing today is to get understanding about the approvals and what is it and why are they important, who has it, and what does it mean for you. I'd like to take you back to a situation where our company was brand new. I was actually at sea doing my thing, sailing around the world, and Peter was addressing the Danish Maritime Authority, and these guys, they're smart cookies, but navigation lights. When Peter came in and said, I'd like to discuss the navigation lights, I invented something. He drew a blank, simply because the guy who was expert on that just retired, and the other guy who had inherited that resource, he didn't really know what this was about, because nobody really had interest in this. And he, with some shuffling and some work, found the standard. And one of the drawbacks of the Colrex is it basically says, okay, here's an international standard. The ships has to sail with this. They have to adhere to that, and it's sort of our navigation Bible. But it also says the country of manufacture of the navigation lights have to establish standards and so that the manufactured navigation lights are in conformance with the Colrex. So we were in a world where sort of around 30 national standards, a little different each, were in operation. And Lopolight is born international. We are exporting 95% of our produce, and that's really a problem for us. And then we started looking into the Danish standard. The Danish standard basically went at length discussing how to trim the wick of the kerosene lamp that was the base of your navigation light. And then there was a little addendum talking about these modern incandescent nav lights with this monster inside. And now we came with a Lopolight based on LED and a lot of good new things, and they were drawing a blank. So we actually wrote, or Peter wrote, the Danish standard. And this is then also the start of our deliberations about how to get approvals, because we saw that getting the Danish to get a respected approval out and be respected across the world would be an uphill battle. So we went to England and we asked the MCA, the equivalent of the US Coast Guard, to say, okay, who are your guys? We found one guy, and we got approvals there, and already in 2006, actually 2005, and that has moved on. So when some of you wonder if you find Lloyd's Register as being the the signing part of our approvals, that hinges on that thing that we went to England in the first place. as we are looking at the United States at the moment, we were facing some interesting discussions, and the base of the discussions with the U.S. Coast Guard, who has been very professional dealing with us, were that they are a bit hampered by the current law in the U.S., which says that the standard UL 1104, if you ever heard that, is the law for navigation lights. This thing was written in 1988. That might be within the memory of some of us, but in technology and LED terms, it's ancient history. Through work with David, the Lopolight sales director in the US, and myself, we basically got to a situation where the US Coast Guard issued a marine technical notice. This is issued in July, nearly 2 years ago, and it provides a detailed, complicated testing regime for getting LED navigation lights approved to use on US flagships. See, there's only one company, according to what the Coast Guard tells us, that has gone through this testing and successfully presented evidence for testing, and that happens to be Lopolight. So it's a very short decision tree to come to if you need a type approved LED navigation light in the US. But no bragging, it's just something we are tremendously proud of. The base of that is this. I counted it to be 945 pages of testing, and I kid you not, it's immense, also expensive, but you don't want to hear that. But that means that if we can do something here, it is to ensure that the lights that you're fitting on vessels, they have the approval. And basically, if you look at navigation lights, you obviously think of the light performance. So there's something about the color of the light. There's something about the intensity of the light. There's something about where it shines, so the angulation. So a port side light has to shine in the port quarter of the vessel, and that's a given, and you need to have that, and I guess most have that under control. The trouble with LED starts with EMC or EMI, electromagnetic interference. There are some standards on this, and if you are, and the standards basically are there to ensure that our radios and our communications are working. I know I'm preaching to the converted, but it's so important. The EMI needs to be under control, and here is a test of one light of Lopolights, where you have on the blue line the standard, and you have to be under the blue line. As you can see, it's on a very large spectrum from 150 kilohertz to 130 megahertz. We are very silent, and if we look at the thing that's interesting for us in the spectrum of the VHF and AIS band, and that's where the dip is, because we do want our VHF communication to be heard, and we want to hear people, and we want to make sure that our AIS signal is transmitted from the boat and we're receiving the other guys. And you can see that we are significantly lower than the standard required. This is the reason why you should never, I repeat, never put LED replacement bulbs in anything that floats, because LED replacement bulbs are made to a price, and they are made to a very small form factor, and that combined means that they have generally a very high noise level. They are not close to being inside any marine regulations. And you know, I'm pretty sure that you wouldn't think of putting it into a navigation light, because that would actually be a crime. But even putting it in the wheelhouse or anywhere else on the boat, near anything that transmits or has to listen into things, makes these something that potentially can ruin your radio performance. So stay away from these LED replacement bulbs. Or if you have them on board, or if you want to use them, make sure that you test your radios when they're used, to make sure that you are not interfering. So I'm now better. I will stay away from this subject, because it's really something that gets me agitated when I see people selling these. I would much rather recommend to use a Hella or a AquaSignal competing product than anybody putting a LED replacement bulb in. So it would be so easy to put a replacement bulb into this one. The problem is that the light you will get out of it is not calibrated, so you will probably get a blue light out of it, something that should be green. And if you look very closely to this one, you will see that the filament of the light bulb is a vertical filament, and that combined makes the angles sharp and distinct and exactly as they should. If you put an LED replacement bulb in, it gets blurry. So it not only gets blue, it gets blurry in the edges. So I urge you to stay away from it. The only place I could imagine an LED replacement bulb to be used would be in the anchor light, but that's close to the antenna, so not a good idea anyway. So I want to tell you a little story. My story with Lopolight started here. So this picture of a sailboat mast far up in the air, a 40-foot racing sailboat, was taken in the South Atlantic in 2004 in early February, after traversing the Southern Ocean, had just passed Cape Horn a week before, and the weather was finally calming down after 2 months of intense weather. So I scaled the masthead. I was alone on board. I was doing a single-handed non-stop circumnavigation for reasons I have difficulty explaining. But that you can entertain. I can entertain you long about that. But that's not the purpose of today. I was up there because everything has broken in the masthead, and the wind systems had gone a long time ago. The various antennas were broken. Even this VHF antenna, you know, of these steel rods, and that had broken. And the Vindex on the rear also looked funny. The arrow itself had disappeared, and the wings were bending upwards. That's the reason the masthead had been in the water 8 times during the Southern Ocean traverse, and including a full knockdown. So I was not too surprised. The thing that surprised me was this prototype of a light that Peter had given me, that it looked like it was installed yesterday, and it shone bright, and I was amazed by it. Took a picture, sent it home, and Peter, who's not a big communicator, basically said, "Could you write something more?" I said, "Nah, not really." But I had this famous sailor calling me. He wanted these lights, and I'm building 2 new in my basement. He had a full-time job at that point. And I said, well, I have a better idea. Why don't we sell it together? And that was basically our starting point. Then he luckily got fired the next 2 weeks after, because the company he worked for went bankrupt. So when I came home from this round the world trip, and this is Hamlet's Castle, Kronborg, and when we have that on our starboard side, we are homebound. And you can see the prototype other Lopolight that was on board on the pulpit here. And so basically 2 weeks after this photo was taken, we were making Lopolights. It was a good change of atmosphere for me. And the world that we came into was this world. And we have seen people wanting to put Lopolights next to these, because of course on veteran ships. But the one in the middle here is a not too far away incandescent double NUC light. This is our competitors' response to LED. So pardon the pun, but they basically did not embrace the technology. They thought, we got a new light source, so we take our existing product and we put a new light source in, but we continue with what we've done for decades. The Lopolights are a bit different. I put a picture of a Lopolight that does exactly the same as this one in about 1/4 of the size. A Lopolight stern light looks like this. I have to find the camera here. It's a small thing, and you will see that it has a lot of stamps and lettering on it. One of the important things about our product is that they are fully potted, so there's no air inside, so there's no way the water can ingress, and we're even supplying submarines that are going down to 3,000 feet of immersion with these lights, and they are sitting outside. Behind this potting compound, you have an electronic circuitry and optics that are hidden in there. This potting compound is a soft. Think about it as a soft glove, we're now making ice class navigation lights, and we have testing facilities to go down to -60 degrees centigrade. I don't recall the Fahrenheit number, but it's extremely low, and this stays soft also in that cold temperature. The components of the light is basically a small driver, and you can see there's a lot of components on there. There's a lot of things happening, and that is due to the fact that LED navigation light has a different lifespan than a incandescent light has. I'll come back to that in a moment. But there are microprocessors and memory chips and stuff like that in there. But the real beauty is this baby. That's an optics based on a single LED light entry. And if you look at it, you will be able to see this little dome in the bottom, and you see Mount Fuji reversed. And it's a combination of the transmission, refraction, and reflection that makes in this case, 135-degree light be extremely precise. It's a massive acrylic piece that acrylic is the only transparent plastic that does not degrade in sunlight. And this massive thing then allows us to create a fully potted light. So you can see now this lens being inside that. And these lights, they're tested 7 times for many hours before even going out to you. So a little precursor on what the Lopolight answer is. Basically, what we've done is, if you treat an LED light nicely, you get a long life. If you embed it in potting compound like we do and nobody else does, you get a vibration safety. And if you are not wasting if you are smart in your construction, you get a low power consumption. We support our products with all the paraphernalia around this light. I'll come into that. What is also really important is that we support you by providing a 5-year warranty on the lights. And even after 5 years, if you come into a situation of replacing a light, you will find us very receptive of your predicament, and we will provide service and quick and reduce cost. The figure here is a little old because we are now at 170,000 nav lights. So we are actually experts in this area. I mentioned to you that the electronic components are complicated, and there's a microprocessor inside, and there's all kinds of stuff. And the reason is that we need to have a end-of-life signaling. The end-of-life signaling is important simply because when you are on larger ships and you have a LED navigation lights, you can run into a situation where the LED itself self-destroys over time. So the output of an LED very far out in the future will slowly decrease. And our competitor does that they basically start out high, so it takes a long time for them to get to the point where it's no longer a navigation light. We do it a little differently. But the base of it is that when you turn on a Lopolight, it starts registering the hours it's been on. And every 2,000 hours it's registered to have been on, it will increase the power to the LEDs just a little bit. And that will happen all the way to 50,000 hours. And when we reach 50,000 hours, the light will signal to that is no longer a navigation light. It needs to be changed. Let me show you how that works. I turn on a light. I'll just turn on that particular combined side light, and then after I've turned it on, you will in 5 seconds see a little blink. There you saw a little blink. That little blink is an indicator from the microprocessor saying I'm working, I'm okay. And our monitoring system that sits in here registers that, say, okay, he's okay, that's fine. And he obviously also registers the power consumption and everything, and no alarm is raised. If for some reason that that startup blink was not there, then the alarm would be raised. So imagine now it has now registered that the microprocessor in the light has now registered that the light is more than 50,000 hours old. That blink you saw would then be extended to a 5-second blackout. This will register, the monitoring relay will register that, and it will raise the alarm. It will basically say, hey, you have an expired light. The good news is that you will get a warning 2,000 hours before that. So at 48,000 hours, you will actually be notified that something is about to happen. 2,000 hours is equivalent to heavy use in 1 year. And the trick about not driving it too hard in the start, the blue line here, basically means that we are treating the LED, the light, your generator nicely, because we're not asking for more power than we need. And then we slowly increase. But it also means that the Lopolight nav light at the end of its life will consume 25% more power than it did when it was in the beginning. And here the monitoring relays that we are using have a big role to play, because they will accept that your power consumption goes up in minute terms, and it will register that as the new normal. So if you have a drop in power consumption, then it will also raise the alarm. What we have in, I'll just flip through it here, because you don't want to hear too much about that. But basically, we have about 100 different Lopolight products. They fit to any type of vessel, any size, any use. And this little slide shows you that we have a focus on, or have products for leisure boating, for super yachts, for commercial vessels, where we have our Pro series. We have a very advanced series for the Navy, both in nav lights, signal lights, and general illumination. And we even have Army lights. And for industry, we also do some products. So if you think about Lopolight, think about functional lighting in exposed areas. That is where our first filter is. The next filter is typically say that if the owner's wife has an opinion about these lights, we are in the wrong meeting and the wrong market. So we are very functionally oriented. As mentioned, we do some lights on demolition equipment. So this is a robot that uses water to demolish, nuclear power plants and stuff like that, and a yellow Lopolight that is shiny. We also got some other demolition equipment. The German military has a tank they call Puma, and she's also going to the shooting terrain, and they wanted a signal light for that. The signal light sits on the turret, and it's not visible here, but when they are in the shooting terrain, they put it on, and it has a red and yellow and green indicator, and you know, I don't know what they're using the yellow for. It's basically, do you feel lucky? Or I don't know, but red and green I do understand. Don't get closer. You can get closer, but the trick about these is that they have to endure minus 42 degrees centigrade whilst being shaken with 50 Gs. So so that was quite a test. This is back in 2008, so it's a while back, but something we still are proud of. In the real world, we make a lot of lights, as I mentioned, and it's not the place for showing you everything, but we have some signature lights that basically will make you remember that Lopolight is not from Denmark. No, we're from Legoland, and Legoland is sort of our Lego as a building system, as a sort of inspiration, if you will, but not taking it further than that. But this is an example of a extremely popular light amongst super yachts. As you can see, it's two different lights. It's a double masthead light with a single anchor on top, and it might seem mundane to us, but it's really popular, and there are very few, I don't know of any other offering this, and combined with this solid aluminum body and something that looks to fit well on a super yacht. This one is actually one made for a vessel over 164 feet, but we have the same for vessel between 66 and 164 feet. We often had this question, if you were a tugboat or you were a super yacht that wanted to take charter guests on board, then they said, well, you need to have NUC lights, and these two red lights, they're a bit cumbersome to mount in many places, and the often seen solution is to place an all-round light on the one side of the mast and an all-round light on the other side of the mast, and where we said, we can do better than that. So basically we took an axe to this all-round light and made 280-degree lights. Now I just put it on a little spacer here, but if you can imagine, you can just move them away from each other. We've seen places where they have several meters between them, and it's a discussion for every boat, for each installation, how far they can be apart. But the trick of these is that the installation is simple. So and by the way, you can have Lopolights as a silver anodized or as a black anodized, and this 180-degree light basically consists of a angled lid. In this angled lid, you basically mount on your mast, and then you bring the light into it, you mount 2 screws, and it's mounted. And if you want a longer cable than the 2 feet that we are supplying standard, that can also be arranged. So 180-degree lights, they solve many problems on anything from super yacht to workboats. They even exist in double versions where you have a primary and a secondary, which is important on larger vessels that are complying to SOLAS or are more than 80 feet long. the compact nature of our lights are most easily described when I show you these. This is not a big light in the classic terms. It was taken off a 63-foot sailing boat, and they put this on. And they didn't put it on because of the size. As you can see, it's duct taped and it's done everything. It's because the spinnaker sheets kept ripping this off. So we took something and say, well, this is solid milled aluminum, and when you have your bolts in, you can use it as a step. And your spinnaker sheets, they will chafe on it, but it will never tear it apart. And so this is the aluminum is saltwater resistant in 6082. The anodization is 25 microns. When we are going into the commercial world, we have our professional series, and they're all black. This is a double port side light. What is important to this is that there are some large cable glands that are accepting the ship's cable. In the case that you have a smaller cable on the vessel, with the light comes a cable gland reducing kit, so that you can match it to what you have on board. This base actually works also as a junction box, and the junction box then negates the use of this expensive IP68 junction box. This is IP68 itself. This plastic base plate that I just put on with my fingers, it is a place to make the installation itself very much easier, but it's also something that keeps the aluminum away from the steel, greatly enhancing the service life of a light. So here's an example of the cable glands. This is a cable gland with a reduced size. This is the normal size. So in the context of a navigation light system, control and monitoring is a very important subject, and we have basically a core answer to that with two control types. So imagine that you're having a control system that consists of a number of relays, one per light, and we can put as many as you want. We can address up to 60. In our push button system, we got a push button control panel that that looks like this, and it will get the engraving that fits your needs, so it's custom and it's specific to your customers, and you can have it in whatever language you want it. French and English is popular in Canada, and elsewhere we also see funny expressions. Very easy to work with, and has all the approvals. If I didn't say it, Lopolight is 24 volts or 10 to 32 for most of them. For the recreational boats, it is from 10 volts upwards. For the professional side, it's a 24 volt system, and in this control monitoring system, we convert whatever currency of power there is on board, whether it's a DC power or an AC power, whether it's 100, 110 or 230, doesn't really matter. We convert it here to a pure 24 volt output that is used for the lights. As mentioned, our control head is here. There's an alternative to that control head, and that is a computer, a Linux-based computer. And I'll just show you here in real life. The Linux-based computer is a German CON bus, and the equivalent, and that is basically holding the software, and this little client is then sitting at each screen. You will see that these small babies, they will then allow a touch screen of your choice or our supply. That really is not important, to operate the lights on the vessel and to have a mimic on the vessel. And the mimic is important because if you are in a very complex vessel, then you want to have an overview. If you are on a super yacht, you can't see your own vessel too much. So whichever way, it's a great tool. And as I said, it can integrate with the existing monitors on the bridge. We just have to be certain that there's a dedicated monitor for the nav lights. But that's a discussion between the owner and the class. And with the touchscreen system, we can easily address up to 60 navigation lights. With the other, we would have more control panels, as the biggest one is 28 different lights. For both systems, it's important to say it is very adaptable. And if you have a double-ender ferry, whether it's touchscreen or control panel, goes for both, we can put as many control heads in as you need, and they will work through the same NLC, the same sender. One of the more complex ones we just did was the Staten Island, New York to Staten Island ferry, where they actually had 2 control stations. Each stations had 2 control panels, one for nav lights, one for signal lights. And in addition to that, they had mimics down in the engineer's room to see where are we, what direction are we sailing, basically. And these lights, they were ice class lights, and they were it was pretty complicated, but we're happy to have delivered that, and the next tree, I think. Going into the various products we have, so you saw a little bit of what we have in the breadth of our supply, but if you then consider the depth of the supply, in the sense that each of the lights that we are having, we can deliver in 2 colors, silver and black. We can deliver them with ice class heaters on, and the form factor does not change. We're using the aluminum chassis of the light to put a heating element on the inside, and that has a thermostat controlled heating system. So basically, when it gets cold, it defrosts. And with recent developments, we have even made possible for lights to be defrosted when they are in the off condition. And that's interesting for a Navy ship that operates in Arctic waters, where he has 2 red lights that are used if you have an unfortunate man overboard incident. it's pretty cool if those lights, they are defrosted and ready to be used when the guy decides to make a swim. And for fishing vessels, and you can play the rest. Even for Navy and search and rescue work, the possibility of dimming of navigation lights, which is not allowed for mere mortals like ourselves, but it's then we can integrate that in a light. And the good news is, with all the features I just discussed, the ice class, the dimming, the ice class, even in off condition, can be handled over a 2-cord cable. So if we want to do a refit, imagine we have a superyacht that has now found out that they have seen everything of beaches and everything of sun that they want to see. Now they want to see polar bears, and they want to see ice, and they want to take it up there, and they want ice class lights and do a refit. And we all know that that cabling can be an issue. But the good news is that a Lopolight ice class system is readily available on the existing infrastructure they have on board. Let me show a little bit about the functionality of these things. I know that I'm running a little bit over time. I see that all of you are there. I'm happy to hear that, see that. And the control panel is in 3 sizes. This is a 14 button. There's a 21. There's a 28. It obviously operates the individual lights, as you can see. It will work if I provoke an error. I conveniently enough can provoke an error by disconnecting this light. You will see that in a moment the corresponding light will go on because that light has been paired with this one. So imagine you have a double light, and here you have the secondary light that's paired with the primary light coming on. You can see that the alarm is on. You can see that this light is showing an alarm. I can make the alarm go away by just taking it to the off position. I can also repair the light and re-establish the connection, and it will then show up as being repaired. That's, you would expect that from any system. There is a power off alarm. There's also the functions of groups. So I have now taken a random number of this display and put them into that group here, and then that group will come on. Or if I want to take an alternative group, yes. So we have 4 group buttons. When we are working into the control, to the touchscreen, the smallest touchscreen we have is the 10-inch. That sort of mimics the size of this 28-button panel. And then we have a 15-inch and a 24-inch if your boat is very big. I cannot stress enough that it's a very strong system. We delivered several hundreds of these systems. They're sailing all around the globe with good results. Lopolight is basically a so this is an old scenario, but it just shows you the testing that we're doing, and we're testing 7 stages through production, and for some lights we also do a accelerated lifetime test in the climate chamber, where we can cycle the temperatures from very low, like 35 degrees minus centigrade, to 60 plus, and we can then cycle that and put the lights under stress in various ways. Here's a picture from the NLCs we are assembling. We're doing quite some work on that. We have delivered to a number of military clients this system, and it conforms to the military grade 461F. So any of you concerned about EMC or EMI or vibration and stuff, then rest assured. At Lopolight, we see our purpose of helping you. We are a strange company in the sense that we do only one thing, namely navigation lights. We do it for all kinds of vessels, and we do it all around the globe. So today I've been talking to Norway and to Singapore and to the US, and that allows us to accumulate a lot of knowledge about what is needed. So, you know, if you want to talk about Malacca Strait lights, we're pretty conversant, or Suez Channel or Panama Strait, or even Kiel Canal, very rare light, then we're here to help you. But there are some tools that you can use to assist yourself. And the first tool is the Lopolight website. Let me shut myself up here. The Lopolight website, it's not the most flashy of places, but it has some nice things. Imagine you wanted to understand something about the products, and you are interested in a medium-sized super yacht. You can search for products that are relevant for that, and unfortunately you get a number. But if you would then say, I would like to understand more about this masthead light, then you can go in and find a data sheet. The data sheet will be downloaded immediately, and it looks like this. And there's the drawings. That's sort of what the engineers want. But you can also see that you can get those drawings both in 2D and 3D. And that's a real benefit for the naval architects or for any that works on the technical side. The other side that we unfortunately have to master is the fact that there are some approvals that we need to have under control. Here are all the certificates, and if you are in need of any further subchapter M or safe return to port or various classes, at the moment we are working with ABS on getting them to stamp us. Then you can always go to David or myself, but here you can find all our certificates, and in that you would be interested in understanding that our certificates are basically two-dimensional. It's a dimension about the light itself, so a type approval of a light, and that is, that's well understood. But then there's the other side, and that's why we're so tremendously proud of that wheel mark you will be able to see on this one, because the wheel mark requires us to have a biannual, 2 times a year, a survey of our production site where they are looking to see how we are producing that particular light to the standards that it was type approved to. and that's damn difficult, but also pretty awesome. And so you can download a lot of good stuff here. And the same thing about the navigation light controller. You can find all the stuff that you need to get closer to ordering a navigation light controller, and you can find the manuals. And let me find the so that it's a real place of resource. Now, when you come to a stopping point or you made a decision, we have a lot of friends that would like you to get your order out of the way. And here's in the US all the good people that can help you. And then David, as our sales director in the US, is a real resource. What happened now? If you want to immerse you more into the Lopolight world, you can go to YouTube and find Lopolight there. We are, at the moment, you can imagine these Corona times, producing videos, talking to you in alternate places, because we would rather be with you and seeing you face to face. But as we are restricted from traveling, we are making videos and webinars. We even have a Instagram, I believe this is, where you can see various installations and tools that we have used. Even on Facebook and Twitter, you can find us. We're basically here to help. And the thing we would like to help you with is, if you see an opportunity for nav lights, we can take it further for you in creating light plans. So if we have a new build or a refit, give us a GA of the vessel. Give us a drawing. Give us some data about the length, the purpose, the flag, what roles it has to play, and then we can propose a light plan for you. We have those data sheets, the 3D drawings, that makes it so easy to fit it. And even if we are in a refit of world, and you saw before that our lights are so much smaller than the incumbents, then we even have mounting adapting plates, so that you don't have to drill new holes. You can basically use the adapter plates, and then they are there. We can also make custom lights, and those custom lights, they come in handy. It can be a boatyard that has searched for work and found some by the Navy or the military, and they are starting to ask for infrared lights. And after we take the first reflex off, let's say an infrared light is invisible, idiot, but then we basically say, okay, how can we help him? And we have done many infrared lights in all kinds of fashion, shining upwards, shining it to the stern in all kinds of spectrums. And we can even combine them with with normal visible lights, so that you can flip a switch and it goes dark, and you can use your night vision equipment to see your vessel. All kinds of combinations. As said, we come from Legoland. The opportunities, you know your market, but we see a lot of opportunity in the refit. There's still a lot of vessels of all sorts and all sizes still burdened with the old regime, We basically need the boat for less than a week, 3 days, then we can refit it. We, as a combined of you installers, us, because it does not take a long time. There will be some preparation work, of course, but the actual work on board is short and sweet, driven by the fact that we can use the existing cable. As mentioned, the support to boat yards is there. We can go in and lift those boat yards that want to explore away from, perhaps going away from leisure into the commercial world and into the military world. And we have some experience that can be that can be of use. And as mentioned earlier, ice class. So the slide can be an ice class light. You cannot see the difference. Obviously, we have to build it in before we put it, so you can't upgrade afterwards. Let's see, that's the drawback. So basically, that was on my mind. So you heard a lot of words about where we came from, where Lopolight came from, and it's now time for your questions, if you have any. I might have answered everything, I don't know. But I have just unmuted your microphones, so if there's anybody you want to voice a question, you're welcome. Otherwise, you can write it to me. Then I'll be happy to answer all I can. The question that Bill was asking was that the replacement of light bulbs can be inconvenient if you have a fixed light, and there is no easy way of replacing an LED light bulb, and you have to go through a lot of compromises to do that. I know SignalMate has something, but he's so far away from being approved that it cannot be considered as an option in this case. If the running of a vessel is of paramount importance, we suggest to have double lights like the one that I showed you before, this double light. Then you have an unimpeded. Kelly, you posed a question on the push button panel. Can the customer group whatever lights they would like, or do you guys have a pre-programmed system? No, the customer can pre-program anything. It's so easy. It's basically an old car radio that is being used. No, so the system from an old car radio. So if you imagine let me show it to you. This group number 3 does not have any lights to it. So I want to group these 2 lights into that group. The only thing I do is to hold the group button I want to assign to these 2 lights together with the our alarm button. I'm just holding them into the lights go out, and now I have grouped a light. Now I'll just shut them out. Take a moment. And now the group number 3 has been created, those 2 lights that I just did. So it's very easy for the customer to do that. JD, you had a question whether the control monitoring system can be made to use on a 12-volt boat. Yes, it can. It runs the monitoring relay is a multi-voltage, and we have a a compact NLC where we are not converting the boat power. We're just taking your onboard power and pushing it through out to the lights. The lights themselves are fine on a 12-volt boat. So that's a yes. That seems to be the end of the questions. I really appreciate your time. Thank you for staying longer than I had anticipated. I appreciate your questions. I appreciate your patience, and I hope to hear from you in the future.